Hello and welcome to another round of Championship predictions from the On Sport podcast. I'm Craig Savage. With me, as always, is Mr. Daniel Cody. Let's have a quick recap of what we predicted in matchday 15 over the weekend. Two perfect scores overall. It was the first game and the last game. Mine was the first game between QPR and Forest, and Daniel Cody's was Reading versus Bournemouth, which ended 2-0 to Bournemouth. Other than that, a couple of 1 points here and there, but overall, I had more 1 points than Daniel Cody has, 8-6 in total. Let's get on to predicting matchday 16. It's the midweek edition. Let's start off with Birmingham City versus Bristol City at St Andrews. Birmingham, a very good 2-0 away win at Middlesbrough. And Bristol City finally won at home.
Yeah, and fair play to you because you called it. It was the toughest game to call of the weekend. And by all accounts from the highlights I've seen, it didn't look the highest quality affair. But Bristol City end the drought. And that's all that matters because the confidence that will give having the monkey off the back. I wouldn't be surprised if Bristol City go on a run now. I really wouldn't. And then if they can keep that going till January and get a couple of players in, you never know. And the good news for them is, despite, as you say, Birmingham getting a really good win, it's back-to-back wins now. Both games playing like the away side, even the home one against Swansea. They've not been the best at home this season. Only 2 wins in their 7. But Bristol City, they only win or lose. So there's not going to be a draw in this game. And I don't know which side of the fence to jump on. I'm inclined to say that Bristol City have generally done quite well away to the bottom half sides this year. And I think they're going to go on a run. If they win this game, well, whoever wins this game is up to 22 points and back in the playoff picture. So Bristol City, for me, I don't think they'll keep a clean sheet because they concede goals in every game. So 2-1 to the visitors.
I'm going straight 1-1 draw. Obviously, it was a great result for both teams over the weekend. Yeah, as you said, Bristol City's confidence. We said it was against Barnsley, and Barnsley have lost 7 straight defeats now, and we'll get to them in a bit. But I'm going to go draw. I think draw's probably fair, despite both teams winning. I can't really pick a team to win, but I'm going to go draw. 1-1 is my scoreline. Right, next up, it's Coventry City versus Swansea City. Coventry 1-0 away win at Hull. Swansea destroyed Peterborough in the first half.
Yeah, Peterborough set up really poorly. We'll get to them later, but Swansea deserved winners. I think we did say last weekend it was probably the one real banker of the predictions. Yes, they ended up scoring more goals than they normally do at home, and it was a bit more comfortable, but I think we all knew Swansea were going to win that game. Coventry, do you know what? They have to get credit for that game because they were far from vintage Coventry. It was certainly wasn't a dominant display. They didn't create hundreds of chances, but they got a Champions win. They got a 1-0 win, and that's the sort of result. If they want to stay up in that top 6 picture, they're going to have to get. They obviously lost that perfect home record last time out, disappointingly against Derby. And although the results are still there, the performances aren't perfect. However, I think Swansea are going to play into their hands because Swansea, we saw it at Luton, we saw it against Birmingham. They try and play out from the back and they do get caught. Coventry have got a pressing, hard-working, attacking line. And I'm actually going to go for a surprise in this. A lot of people will back Swansea after the weekend or think it'll be close. I'm going to go 3-1 Coventry. I think they'll win really comfortably.
I don't agree. I'm just going to throw a shake up to these predictions this week, not going to lie. I'm going to go 2-2. I think both teams are pretty good going forward. It's going to be interesting to see how they do defensively in this game. Right, next up at Kenilworth Road, Luton Town versus Middlesbrough. Hey, guess what? Luton on the TV. What a miracle. Both teams, 2-0 defeats. Let's start with Middlesbrough. Got done, conceded 2 in 3 minutes, killed the game off for them. Luton, just a very, very poor first half, and it's killed them.
Yeah, Luton were, well, we mentioned it last week, didn't we? The one fear was if Elijah Adebayo didn't make it, we're not the same side. And we desperately in January, if we need one signing, it's another Elijah Adebayo or someone that can come in and do that role. Jerome does a really good job off the bench. He's great for 20 minutes. He's got good experience, but you can't expect him to be a big physical focal point in the team when, let's be honest, he's mid-30s now. He was brought in to be an emergency backup and a player coach. So an off day for Luton. They weren't great all over the park. It's not just missing the centre forward. It seemed like the tough couple of weeks had caught up with them and maybe a few more changes needed to be made with the squad at hand. Middlesbrough, I think that's the sort of one that really annoys Neil Warnock. When you concede one, to then collapse and concede another straight away. And what was otherwise basically a nothing game. Birmingham gave up possession. We expected that. There wasn't a huge amount of chances between them. And the only 2 real good ones in the end were the goals. So Middlesbrough disappointing. 2 sides that are going to be needing to bounce back. My problem is, I know this week going to watch Middlesbrough and Stoke at home for Luton is going to be a low scoring week for me. So I'm going to go for 0-0 because I don't think Adebayo will be back. If he was, I would have gone for 1-0 Luton.
I'm going for a draw as well, especially Luton on the TV. Luton never rarely win on the TV. So that's probably why I haven't gone for Luton win. I think that sort of performance from Luton on Saturday was probably coming in the way. And it's probably a good thing that it came because it calms them. That now, obviously, they were in the playoffs position beforehand. I think talking about the Premier League, and I think we got a little bit excited as well because we were in the 5th place of the Championship in the playoffs, and obviously reality came back down to earth. So I think that's a good thing. Keeps balance back into it. It wasn't a great performance against Preston. Middlesbrough, on the other hand, just inconsistent again. I can't understand Middlesbrough at the moment. But draw, I think, will be right. I'm going for Championship's favourite scoreline of 1-1. So after 3 games, I've gone for draws.
You reminded me, Craig, of the last time those two teams played on TV.
It was a draw as well. So that was 3-3 on the opening day a couple of seasons ago. Right, next up is a team that Luton always seems to play on TV as well, Millwall. They're at home to Reading. Millwall got absolutely battered by Huddersfield, only by a 0-0, but looking at the stats, they got absolutely trounced. Reading just lost to Bournemouth, who are unbeaten in the now 15 games.
Yeah, and it was a classic Bournemouth display to go back to them. And Reading, look, their season isn't going to be defined by this, but it is now becoming a poor run with 3 defeats in a row. And you have to question, where's the confidence gone? Because Blackpool and Blackburn are games they perhaps shouldn't have been expecting to lose. Certainly the manner of the Blackpool one, and the fact that they haven't scored a goal since that would suggest that there are perhaps some concerns. Millwall, they're so hard to predict, aren't they? Awful performance against Luton, 2 brilliant ones to fight against Sheffield United and Stoke. But looking at their results this season, there might be an argument to suggest that they're struggling to get themselves up for the games that aren't considered the big games. And at home, certainly, I know they won the last game against Stoke, but they've been a real mixed bag this year. 3 wins, 2 draws, 2 defeats, 8 goals for, 8 goals against. It's impossible to call. The only thing I think we can bank on is it being low scoring again. Reading, again on the road, either win or lose, 2 wins, 5 defeats. Ship goals for fun, which makes Millwall's usual draw specialist hard to predict. I'm going to go for 1-0 to Millwall. I think they're going to do to Reading what Huddersfield did to them.
I don't really want to go 4 straight draws, so I'm going to have to pick a team this time. I'm going to go 2-1 to Reading. That's all I've got to say on this game. I really don't know.
It's a tough one.
Why? It's a tough one. Let's move on, shall we? Sorry, Millwall Reading fans. Sorry. Right. Nottingham Forest, they're at home to Sheffield United at the City Ground. Nottingham Forest, Jack Colbeck's late equaliser against QPR. Sheffield United losing 1-0 to Blackpool. Let's talk about Sheffield United because they had that bad spell to start with, then it got better, and now they're back into defeats.
Yeah, and they're just really weird games they're losing. The way they lost the Millwall game, obviously, with the red cards when they were in the ascendancy and looking to go on and win it. I guess we haven't got to judge them too much on Bournemouth away, but Blackpool at home, I know Blackpool have been doing really well. We've talked about their threat on the road, but it wasn't a great Sheffield United display again. And the goals are seeming really hard to come by consistently. They've had more chances than Blackpool, but we know the way Blackpool are going to play. Sheffield United, they just can't seem to string together 2 or 3 good results. Nottingham Forest, I think that goal was crucial. I know it was a fortunate deflected long-range strike in the 91st minute, but it's a good point. And after the Fulham result, if it had been back-to-back defeats, we'd be asking the same question we're now asking of Reading and teams like that. So I think it was a crucial result. I think it will give them confidence for this one. But I don't think we're going to see a run again like with the new manager bounce. So I'm actually going to sit on the fence with the Championship's favourite scoreline again. But I think Forest will get the point before the 91st minute this time.
Sheffield United really need to bounce back, to be honest. Forest on that good run anyway. I know they lost last week to Fulham, but everyone seems to lose and get battered by Fulham at the moment. But they recovered well against QPR late on. This could be an entertaining game, actually, if it works well. But I'm going to say Sheffield United. I'm going to say Sheffield United are going to sneak this one. I'm going to go 2-1. Right, next up, it's Peterborough versus Huddersfield at London Road. Peterborough were absolutely atrocious against Swansea. Huddersfield, as we said, against Millwall, absolutely bad. And they got their reward, even by the odd goal, but they finally got the reward with the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I've said this on Huddersfield a bit this season, and I don't mean it disrespectfully. They've beaten virtually every side or got a result against virtually every side expected to be outside the top 10 this year. And that's absolutely incredible. When you consider that they were in a relegation scrap to 4 or 5 games to go last season, they're not going to be anywhere near it this year. The one thing that does worry me is after this, they have got a tough run of fixtures coming up. After the November international break to Christmas, it gets a little bit tougher. But Peterborough at home, you can't judge them on the Swansea game because we know they're a completely different team when they're at London Road. It's so hard to predict. Do you know what? I'm going to go for a rare home defeat for Peterborough. And I know that there's nothing to suggest that because Huddersfield have been mid-table on the road this year. Peterborough have been solid enough at home, 3 wins already. But I'm going to go 1-0 Huddersfield. It's midweek and I'm banking on it finally not being many goals.
Well, I'm going opposite to you. I'm banking on there will be goals. Unfortunately, it's going to be none for Peterborough and 3 for Huddersfield.
Wow.
This is my bold one of the week. I think Huddersfield, they're looking really obviously impressive at the moment. They're creating chances. If they can create those chances against Peterborough, if they can create those chances against Millwall, who are quite stubborn defensively, if they can create those chances against Peterborough, then they can. If they take their chances, they could go into something special. So I think 3-0 Huddersfield. This could be the game for that. Right, next up, big game down at the bottom of the Championship. It is Barnsley versus Derby on Wednesday. Derby win this game, they go above Barnsley. Do you see that happening?
No, in truth, is the simple answer.
Right, let's move on. And
Barnsley are in disarray, to be honest, and the rot has to stop somewhere. The promising signs are against Sheffield United the last 15 minutes when they went for it, and for large parts against Bristol City, they didn't get outplayed, which has been happening for a number of games. They've scored 3 goals in the last 2 games, which is not far off doubling their tally for the season. They've now scored 9, so that's a massive increase for them. Derby, do you know what? I was really worried by some of the signs against Blackburn because they're the first time I've seen them probably all season since that opening couple of games with Peterborough and that, where they've conceded really poor goals. And I think that was something that concerned me. Barnsley, if they lose this game, we're going to have a real tough time on Thursday because I'm back to work and we're going to have a manager special and predictions to do if we lose this because they've got Hull at the weekend and they have to get a manager in for that to win. So I'm going to bank on Barnsley to get a point. Derby have started scoring, but they've also started conceding. So against all of the odds, this is my game of midweek. Everyone thinks KG 0-0, 1-0. I'm going 2 apiece. It's going to be the game of the day.
I think Derby will overtake Barnsley in the table this week. There's signs of Derby, even though they're near the bottom. There are signs that they can do something. All right, it wasn't a great performance yesterday against Blackburn, but there's signs. Barnsley on the other hand, 7 straight defeats now. It's not looking pretty. Marcus Schopp is hanging on by a thread in this managerial position for Barnsley. I can't see it improving. Derby to win 1-0 away at Oakwell, and the goal will be from Curtis Davis. Right, next up, it's Blackburn versus Fulham at Ewood Park. We just talked about Blackburn. They had a good 2-1 win at Derby. Could have been a bit more. Fulham, Mitrovic, 18 goals now in the league, and the record, he's going to smash this record of the top goal scorer in the Championship in one season, isn't he?
He is, and to be fair, on the EFL highlights, Colin Murray called it very early in the season, and he looks pretty smart for it now. They're playing right into his hands, Mitrovic, Fulham, and he looks like he's going to score every game. It's 18 in 15 now. That's an insane record in one of the hardest leagues in the world. But you've got to credit Marco Silva as well. We had our doubts about him at the start, but he is really playing to their strengths. He's getting players in the wide areas who are there solely to serve Mitrovic, and it's working a treat. So they've got flying fullbacks. They're going to fly up from the Championship at this rate. And they're starting to look really good because we've often seen a little blip from Fulham every 2 or 3 games. This has been 4 very good performances in a row or solid results. Blackburn, the most patchy team in the Championship, the most inconsistent one, but the last 2 performances have been excellent. They are still in that playoff mix. They're in 7th place, albeit they're 5 points off 19th, but let's not focus on that side. They've won 4 of their 7 home games. Fulham are one of the best teams in the league on the road. They've won 4 of their 7 on the road. But Blackburn are one of the few teams that can threaten them defensively. The silly red card for Tosin might end up being costly towards the end of that game. But I'm going to go for Fulham to nick it and keep the bounce going. It's going to be tight, but 2-1 to Fulham. And Mitrovic, yes, he will score 1.
If Mitrovic scores 1, he's going to score 2. That's my worry because I was going to say 2-1 to start with. I'm going to go 2-3 to Fulham, because Blackburn can score at home. We've seen them score 2 in quite a few games at home at Ewood Park. It's see if they can deal with Mitrovic and Bobby Reed and Harry Wilson. So it'd be interesting on that front. But yeah, I think Fulham obviously still got enough quality in that, so they're going to win this game for me. 3-2. We'll be tied. Anyone thinks. Right, Blackpool. They're at home to Stoke City. We obviously said that Blackpool beating Sheffield United. Stoke, on the other hand, cruising at 3-0. And then a mad 5 minutes, cost them 3 goals and draw the game.
Yeah, we talk about the same thing with a few sides in the Championship at the moment, is one goal becomes a collapse, and Stoke just look bereft of confidence. It's no coincidence that the form has almost coincided with Nick Powell being out of the side, and they've lost a lot of that attacking threat. They got 3 goals against Cardiff, but a lot of teams have done that this year. But to concede 3 against Cardiff in the form they're in was catastrophic. And the manner of how deep they went after they conceded the first goal was a little bit concerning. They were defensively poor. They should have lost 4-3 because Kiefer Moore scored a goal that was a long way onside, and it got ruled out because of a bit of a fear with the other player maybe touching the ball. But then Stoke had a chance a yard out to bundle one in at the end. So it ironically could have been more. 2 of the worst defences up against each other there. And Stoke, from a side that you couldn't predict not to win at home, now just look an awful side. Blackpool, brilliant. We look fantastic again, Craig. We've got a lot of things wrong this season, but we picked out Keshi Anderson on Thursday's episode. He scores the winner at Sheffield United, and we look like geniuses again. Blackpool in the playoffs at this stage of the season, it's probably not going to last, but just for that, what a moment. What a job that's been done there. And I've talked about the recruitment before. At home, they haven't drawn a game yet this season. On the road, Stoke are woeful, though. Is it going to be one of those ones that is classic Championship and it goes against the form book? Yes, it is. It's going to be a Michael O'Neill special, as Charlie would say. It's 1-0 to Stoke City. There is no logic to predict that, but occasionally you've just got to go for a hunch, haven't you? I think the Blackpool run will end today.
I don't think the Blackpool end will run today. I'm going to same scoreline, but opposite way. I think 1-0 to Blackpool at Bloomfield Road. It's my first home win of this match day out of 8 fixtures so far, or 9. I hope Blackpool don't have the same thing that Luton had last week of, oh, they're in the playoffs, oh, giddy, and then it gets crashing back down to earth and they get trounced. I think that will happen. Don't get me wrong. I don't see Blackpool in the playoffs this season. I'll be brutally honest, and they're doing brilliantly. Let's give them a lot of praise. Same with Coventry and Huddersfield. Obviously, they're in the playoffs at the moment. Give them a lot of praise because they've done remarkably well after 15 games. Not the 3 teams I expect to be in the playoffs at the moment, but give them praise in that. Blackpool to win 1-0. Stoke, very shaky. Scored 20, conceded 19. So there's no middle ground's not working at the moment for them. But yeah, I think Blackpool win this game 1-0. Keshi Anderson won't score in this game, actually. I'm just going to make that. It'll be Yates. In this game. Right, next up, it's Bournemouth versus Preston North End. Obviously, we speak about Bournemouth and they're unbeaten and another good performance. Let's talk about Preston because we've slagged off Preston quite a lot this season, but you've got to give them credit because they basically won the game in the first half and it was a wonder strike.
Yeah, it was a really good performance against a poor Luton, albeit. But I've got to say, for the most part this season, I've said they've been on par with where I expected them to be. And I was just worrying about that when I saw the performance in the Blackpool game, when I saw the lack of attacking intent in the Derby game. But they played really well against Liverpool in the Cup in the week. That's got to be said too. And they were fantastic against Luton. They played them off the park. They took advantage of the tactical changes Luton had to make. And they've got themselves in I know they're 19th and it looks bad positionally, but they're 3 points off 10th, which is Luton, ironically. And they're 9 points clear of the relegation zone. So with the squad he's got, with the investment they've had, I think Frankie McAvoy is doing a really solid job. So I take my hat off and say I was wrong on that one because I thought he would struggle. Bournemouth, they don't look like conceding. They don't look like they'll ever go a game without scoring. 26 goals for, 8 against. They've got by far the best defence in the Championship. I think the next best actually is Fulham and West Brom on 14. So nearly twice as good as anyone else. Preston on the road have not won a game all season. They've only got 3 points, but they don't concede many. So I'm going to go for, do you know what? I think Bournemouth, it'll be lack of vintage stuff, but it's going to be a performance of champions. A late winner, 1-0 Bournemouth, and they'll keep the roll going. But Scott Parker doing a great job. He doesn't get the credit because they're just doing too well.
Yeah, I think it's weird that Scott Parker doesn't get the credit he probably deserves, because I think where he took Fulham up obviously a couple of seasons ago, and obviously he's coming to a Bournemouth side that are obviously got enough very good quality in the squad already, and then the added signings of a Gary Cahill has seemed to be proven really key for them at the moment. Preston, on the other hand, I said a very good first half performance. They needed that sort of performance. Obviously, they played well against Liverpool in the cup, but I think in the Championship you have to have those sort of performances. If they can get a run going now, then who knows? But also, I don't see them having a run. I'm going to go for, obviously, this is a tough game anyway. Bournemouth's unbeaten run will carry on, in my opinion. I'm going to go 3-1 to Bournemouth. Right, 2 games to go. It is Cardiff City versus Queen's Park Rangers. Obviously, managerless Cardiff. It looked disastrous for at least 60 minutes. Somehow, you have to give them credit, 3 goals in 5 minutes. And they couldn't score for 6-7 games and scored 3 in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I know there was a mix of deflections, defensive collapses, etc. I tell you what, we know one thing, that Steve Morrison knows how to give a team talk. I think we've learned that this time. And to be fair, they've got a new manager bounce of such, considering they hadn't scored, it was 1 goal in the 8 defeats in a row, wasn't it? And fantastic to get 3 goals, to build the confidence, and the way they came back into it. As I mentioned, they had a perfectly good goal chalked off as well. It should have been a 4-3 victory, although they could have almost lost it at the other end. And they play a QPR side who, as we've mentioned, they do like to ship a few goals. I know they nearly kept a clean sheet against Forest. They did in the cup against Sunderland, but went out to League One side on penalties in the end. And they kept one against Blackburn at home the time before that. But QPR, you can't trust at home. They concede one a game. They're going to concede one a game as well. But I think they'll score one. Championship's favourite scoreline. I'm sitting on the fence.
Yeah, I just, it was a bonkers game for Cardiff. QPR, on the other hand, couldn't hold on. As you said, do concede goals, scored 26, conceded 23. That's the highest out the top 10. I'm going to go QPR to nick this one 2-1. But it'll be a much better performance from Cardiff. They are defensively still weak. And if you can see 3 pretty much in the first 40 whatever minutes, that's still a worrying sign. And the final game, it is West Bromwich Albion versus Hull City at the Hawthorns. West Brom's another defeat, 3-5 now. Hull losing to Coventry, still down there, but the performances are getting there.
Performances have been a little better in the last 2 games. The problem is, Craig, and I mentioned this after the Luton one, and the same happened against Coventry. They just don't look like they're ever going to score. I know they've obviously got 9 goals this season. It is the least in the league in 15 matches. I don't see how they score. And for West Brom, it's the perfect game to bounce back. They, yes, were very unfortunate. The penalty for Fulham's first goal was a very clean and excellent tackle by Kyle Bartley, according to most. However, the lack of discipline and the lack of defensive structure after that was a big concern, because that's what Valerian Ismail prided his Barnsley side on. And at early doors, it's what his West Brom side have largely been prided on. And if it was any other game, I'd probably not back them to win it. But because it's Hull, I think they'll sneak one of those classic 1 or 2-0 wins. And because I think I've gone for a few 1-0s today, I'll go for 2-0 to West Brom and a couple of bits of individual magic to get them out of jail.
This could be the biggest result of the day for me. I think West Brom will go back to winning ways. I know they'll miss Furlong's long throw, so they'll have to adapt to trying something different. But West Brom's quality will still be a lot more than Hull. I'm going to go 4-0 to West Brom. And let's have a quick reminder of what we just predicted for matchday 16. Not many home wins for me, only 3 in total. A few away wins and a couple of draws to start with. Cody has gone for 4-1-0s in matchday 16, 2 home, 2 away, and a 2-2 draw between Barnsley and Derby. And those are our predictions for the midweek action in matchday 16. Do you agree with us or disagree with us? Let us know in the comment section down there and give us your predictions for this midweek. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Honest Football Podcast, and you can follow us on Twitter at Honest Football 3.